how are we all doing after the most incredible final between two prodigal talents on the tennis court?
My nervous
I
system is shot, Joel.
I have a glass of wine, Spanish, to
Oh,
celebrate and to calm the nerves down
Yes.
because that was intense, and we weren't even on the court or in the arena. It was just
I was
intense
just
enough watching from
standing up.
home.
I was just standing up. I had to get up off my sofa. I was so nervous because I was actually nervous for a different reason because I thought I was actually going to be right with my pretty bold call on the semi-finals prediction episode that I said I thought Sinner was going to win in three, and it was very much looking like that was going to be the case.
three match points. I mean, unbelievable. I can't really fathom how close these tennis matches are that go on so long. The fact that one shot, a couple of inches, and everything would be completely different. And that sort of comeback, I think it just reminds me, of when we saw, and I think I didn't know what was going to happen in the same way where Nadal and Federer, 2008, two sets went
Yeah.
one way, two sets went the other. And when he got broken back, I thought, oh, this is going to be an absolute carbon copy of that match. But I mean, it was the contest that we needed after so many straightforward finals recently for the men's side.
So many times players come back, don't they, to get to that fifth set, and then it just doesn't quite, they can't go all the way. But I mean, Carlos Alcaraz, he has a ridiculous record now in fifth sets, 13-1. He's only ever lost one five set match. He's never lost a Grand Slam final. And I mean, this is his hardest Grand Slam final to date, I suppose, apart from maybe the Djokovic Wimbledon, that their first final 2 years ago. It sort of reminded me a little bit of that, where you thought he was down and out. He came back to turn it on its head. And I mean, I don't really have words. It was just such a stunning encounter. I'm so
Mm.
pleased. And I mean, Sinner will be, gutted to have not taken those three championship points. But I have 100% faith that he will win this tournament one day.
Mm. Yeah, I think so too. It just felt like Carlos Alcaraz as a player has that extra level of magic that he can bring. I think the level of Sinner generally is higher, but I think those moments when he went into God mode to get the break back, also in that tie break going 7-0 up. I mean, it was tennis, genuinely tennis from another planet. It was hold your breath and just have it taken away because I don't think I've seen him play points like that in succession quite like that to go ahead because Jannik Sinner didn't really let up at any point. It was just that Alcaraz, he dipped in, he dipped out, and when he peaked, it was something else.
It did feel that, yeah, Sinner was the most consistent player throughout. And when Alcaraz was playing his top tennis, he just, he had that extra edge like we saw in that final, champions tiebreak. I mean, that was dominant. He just didn't really put a foot wrong. And it just, could he went up another gear, even though he'd already gone up a gear
What
to
gear were
save
we in,
those
Kim? Are we in
championship
sixth gear,
points.
seventh?
Oh, I don't know how many gears he's got. I mean, is there even more to come from him? Although he's got this like ridiculous five-set record, this was actually the first time he'd had to come from two sets down. So he's still having to break new
Mm.
territory, even so early on in his young career. He's achieved so much and broken records left, right, and center, but he's still had to, break his own little kind of milestone, ticking off the box of two sets behind and coming back. Oh, I mean, I don't really know where to start because I mean, let's start at the beginning of the match. So the opening exchanges, the opening game was 12 minutes of Sinner to hold serve. That kind of set the tone for what has now become the longest Roland Garros final in history at 5 hours and 29 minutes. But then at one point, Sinner was kind of two sets up and you thought, oh, actually, it started out quite close and it's sort of going one way. At that point, did you think, oh, I think Sinner's going to potentially get this done quite easily? We're going to be, recording our podcast much earlier than we envisaged.
I think personally for me, I thought Sinner, was playing a great level of tennis that Alcaraz, sorry, wasn't matching with. But again, with Carlos Alcaraz, you could just never count him out. And I think what's so incredible about him is the belief that he has that he can beat Jannik Sinner regardless of the situation he finds himself in. And even in that fifth set, in that championship tiebreak, it felt like Sinner was going for the percentage tennis, because, it was a tight moment. Perhaps fatigue had a little bit of a factor in it for Sinner. But Carlos Alcaraz, Chris, as you said, just sort of went out and he grasped it. He really grasped the moment. And it makes me think a quality that Carlos Alcaraz has that maybe no other tennis player on the men's circuit has that enables him to win these Grand Slam finals is he is so clutch in those moments where you need it most, whether it's in a tiebreak at the end of a really long tennis match, 5 hours plus, or it's championship point down. He really feeds off of that energy. So even though in that third set, I was kind of like, Jannik Sinner has got this in the bag. He's playing well. He's playing confident. He got his tactics spot on. You can never count out Carlos Alcaraz because I don't ever think he doubts himself that he can win, even when he was in uncharted territory today, coming back from 2 sets to love down.
I agree. I think he does just have that. I always call it like a factory reset button. It's like
it's something you can't coach.
No, you can't. Like he's able to just continue on without having to necessarily think about the fact that he is going down in that way. I think sometimes that leads to a lack of urgency in the early points of matches.
It's like, don't worry, I'll just do this the hard way.
It's kind of like when you know that you can kind of take a test again because you can do a reset. He's almost like, you know what, I'll get to this in set 3 or something like that. But that's something where even when he is in those scenarios, what I think is so impressive and was so impressive in this match is that he did really rely on his second serve. At the end of that 5th set, his first serve was not landing and he had to produce those sort of absolute sort of highlights reel shots to get through. And I think that's probably where he's the most where's the most depth in his game, where he's able to rely on all the different parts of it. We had a drive volley off a drop shot retrieval from Jannik Sinner. We had some phenomenal gets, like almost like a slide squash shot that he did whilst he was sliding. And it's like this whole arsenal of incredible shots he has. It's almost like selecting which one and when to use them is the bigger challenge than it is actually for him to kind of win easily. Because I think he has this sort of mental block, a bit like when he won the US Open, which was, you know what, I can win this the hard way. Which for Carlos Alcaraz fans, I think probably they'd like him to win a lot quicker.
Yeah, I mean, Carlos Alcaraz, for me as a fan who's enjoyed and endured many Rafa Nadal tense finals. This did evoke those finals of old with Djokovic, with Federer, and I think this was an absolute tennis match for the times. I keep harking back to that Wimbledon poster. They were so insightful, putting them both on the poster
very early, years ago. Weren't they?
And they must be thinking, yeah, we called this, and this is this is their first Grand Slam final. This has set the bar. If should they face again, later this year, next year, we're going to be expecting this over and over and over again. How does Sinner regroup from this? Do you think this is going to haunt him the next time he steps on court in a Grand Slam final with Alcaraz? Because he's lost 5 in a row now to Alcaraz, and he's not just lost this match. He had chances to win 3 championship points in a row. How do you think he's going to fare kind of mentally when he next steps on court with Alcaraz, do you think?
Oh, that's a fascinating question. I think he's a very composed, player on the court, and he's got someone in Darren Cahill who I think will keep him focused. But having said that, there's no doubt that there's going to be, I think, some scar tissue from a result like this, given the magnitude of the match. The fact that both players, went in undefeated in a Grand Slam final. The fact that Sinner was so close, you could really sense that, I feel, due to the camera close-ups of Jannik Sinner's mum. It was just
she was crying. She was in tears.
Yes. It was excruciatingly emotional at times. So, I have no doubt that Jannik Sinner is going to bounce back. I do think he is playing some of the best tennis, but maybe lacks that X factor that Alcaraz can bring.
God factor, you can't even, I feel like,
you can't even coach. It's like Jannik Sinner technically, I think, is a from the back of the court anyway, better tennis player than Alcaraz. It technically in terms of his shots, but the shot making and the brilliance of Alcaraz just cannot be determined, and that is the unknown factor, I think, that helps kind of Alcaraz get over the line. But certainly I think Sinner can be proud of his performance. I just think he'll maybe be obviously a little bit disappointed he wasn't able to kind of kind of nip it in the bud earlier on, because we do know Alcaraz just gets stronger and stronger as matches progress. And maybe it was, try and be part of the game plan to kind of close it off as soon as possible, which he so nearly did.
Yeah, I mean, we almost got back into it though as well. So I think that's also something that we should say as testament to Sinner's performance, is that
even when
he didn't, even when he did lose that set and there was that disappointment, he did then, he then got himself back into it. He gave himself more chances to potentially win it. So that is a champion's mentality in so many ways. But when it comes to the rivalry, I think, how does this now match up in terms of matches? We've talked about some references of matches past. Is this, and surely it must be, one of the best matches that we've ever seen at Grand Slam level, especially at a Grand Slam final?
Oh, without a doubt. I think, Federer Nadal 2008 Wimbledon, for me, still edges it. In the darkness, the rain delays, it just had that extra level of drama and excitement.
No one could see the ball.
The quality of this match, and just they're both so young, like the promise that it holds for the next generation of tennis, I think, the next decade. If we're going to be treated to this twice, 3 times a year, how lucky are we? We've just had the big 3 and now we're getting this. As a tennis fan, that's fantastic. But, it's got to be right up there.
Yeah, I think quality-wise, I think it actually surpasses Federer and Nadal in that Wimbledon final. The level that these two are bringing to the court is phenomenal. They're really challenging each other. I think you could tell from the first set that it was so close, given the number of breakpoint opportunities each were forcing on the opponent's serve. It just showed how good of their return games are. No free points really whatsoever. And they're just very, very evenly matched. And I think they're going to really spur each other on to play tennis maybe the other players are not going to be able to reach. And it might just be, who Grand Slam finals to come. Is it going to be Sinner or is it going to be Alcaraz? But I think quality-wise, this is up there as maybe, if not the highest quality Grand Slam final from set 1 to set 5
that you've ever seen.
In my lifetime of watching matches, I would say so. The only one maybe that comes close, I would say, is the Australian Open final between Rafa and Djokovic.
2012.
Yes.
Yeah, the chairs
final, when they were just so knackered.
6 hours, I think, wasn't it? It's slightly longer.
Yeah.
One fun stat I thought, this match well surpassed the previous longest Roland Garros final, which was 4 hours and 42 minutes. That was Mats Wilander winning over Guillermo Vilas back in 1982. That scoreline, though, was 1-6, 7-6, 6-love, 6-4, which begs the question, what on earth were they doing for that scoreline to be 4 hours, 42 minutes?
Was juice not a thing, potentially, then? I don't know. Was it just they just kept playing forever? That doesn't feel like it would be that long. I think some of the other stats out there, I didn't realise. Carlos Alcaraz has done this before. He's won a slam from match point down as well. That was something that I had to look up. And that was
not in the final.
Not in the final. No. That was against Jannik Sinner again in the quarterfinal of the US Open 2022. He won his first slam. So, I mean, maybe...
But there are these moments building up. It's not just this final, is it? There's a few pain points the Sinner's going to, possibly be aware of now.
Maybe he remembered that at that moment, that you can't count out Alcaraz. It's never over until it's over. And I thought that was something that was quite interesting, because I always remember, obviously, the Djokovic Federer one that was in a final, and that was 40-15 on Federer's serve. So that was particularly
2019.
Yeah, that was a tough one for me. I'm not over that. I don't think he is either. But in terms of this match, I also think that there is something that you have to say, is that Jannik Sinner, to play at this level from where he was in Rome, obviously having that time off as well because he was banned for anti-doping offences. But I mean, for some people, they'll be breathing a big sigh of relief that Sinner didn't win this, given the fact that they thought the ban should have been longer. Also, the fact that there was that sort of backdating that allowed him to play a warm-up tournament as well. Do we think that it is actually important, not just for Carlos Alcaraz, but also for the sport, that potentially the optics of this don't look like someone got away with it and then was able to consecutively play 3 Grand Slams after testing positive twice?
I think that some people will have thought should Sinner be even playing this final. He was able to negotiate a very nice deal through his lawyers and agents and what have you, where he didn't miss a slam, and it hasn't really affected him. And actually having 3 months off has meant he's really fit and healthy and ready to rumble at this tournament. And I think that some people will be thinking the right person has won because there will be question marks over Jannik Sinner. Does everyone believe his story? Does everyone think that the deal that he struck was the morally right thing to have happened compared to how other players have been treated? So, we're not sort of making a judgment here, but there are people who will think that and be kind of glad in that sense that Alcaraz has won, who, there are no question marks in his camp. Although what I wanted to ask you both, what you thought was Jannik Sinner having had that time off, having only played one warm-up tournament, when push came to shove, that final set, champions tiebreak, Alcaraz was the one who was able to up it, and at 3 championship points down, up it again. Having kind of come through a standard clay season, be a bit more battle hard and fought his way through the draw much more than Sinner has, did that help him having not, been out of action for kind of 3 months without competition?
It might help him going into Wimbledon is what I think, because he did get sick at Wimbledon last year. He played a lot of tennis in the lead up to that. So I think it's always good to have a little bit of time off, I think, because I think tennis is, it's a bit of a hamster wheel, as Casper Ruud said during this tournament. So I don't think it actually will have been at too much of a detriment. And sometimes it gives you the time to work on and change things that you don't have time to work on otherwise. And I feel like his movement has improved so significantly. I think that was the biggest change in this matchup for me, was just how good he was at moving. I think in terms of coming back, and I just think it's so impressive, the fact that he started at this level. I think for Alcaraz, there were questions about injury. I think there was something that we talked about, was that Jannik Sinner was banned at the time. Carlos Alcaraz was skipping tournaments injured. Was this an opportunity for someone else to come in? And now the last 6 Grand Slams have been won by the 2 of them. They've shared them. So I think it just shows that when you are that level of quality, no matter what you've been through, whether you've had a tough draw, an easy draw, you do have that tennis you can play, and you are able to tap into that at the big moments. But would it have been helpful if there was a bit more of a challenge for Jannik Sinner along the way, do you think?
I'm not sure, to be honest. I think, he played...
No, Djokovic, that was a good match.
Djokovic was a challenge.
That was very tense, yeah.
What more challenge could you have?
I think, physicality-wise, I think, Alcaraz maybe has the advantage there, but Sinner's certainly stuck with him. I think the feeling, at the moment is that Sinner's level of tennis needs to be able to get the job done in 3 or 4 sets. Try and not go to 5 with Carlos Alcaraz, because as soon as that happens, Carlos Alcaraz almost becomes like a completely different entity. And I think we started to see, even at the start of that 5th set, it looked like potentially Sinner was, cramping. I think he was going for the pickle juice to help him kind of get through. And to his credit, it did help. He was able to stay with Alcaraz, but Alcaraz just becomes a different person in that 5th set.
It does make me think a little bit as well of, as you say, like the nature of how they won. And we did talk about this with Sabalenka yesterday as well, is that she's got to get it done in 2. And I think that the longer it goes on, it's very similar in terms of that matchup. The longer it goes on.
US Open, Sinner was 2 sets to 1 up, lost in 5. He has a problem, it feels, at Grand Slams maybe, of closing it out against Carlos Alcaraz. I mean, I guess one question is there something Jannik Sinner could have done differently to close this match? I know he was very, very close, and we're talking about points here or there, but do you feel like there is anything that he can do to make sure that he can get over the finish line quicker against Carlos Alcaraz, so that he doesn't start building that momentum and building that belief that he can win this?
I don't think he can. I think it comes from Carlos's side of the court. I think in those moments, as we've talked about, he taps into something that not many players have, and maybe no other player on the tour has, where it's almost like he's not like Hulk mode, but it's like he's been plugged in, or the batteries have been recharged. He just taps into something else, and it's something that you can't control yourself. I think he controlled everything he could have done, Jannik Sinner, from his side of the court. Potentially his service numbers he might not be thrilled with.
I mean, it was below 60% first serves in.
Yeah, for the match. Yeah, it was. He did win a lot of points on his first serve, And actually, kind of in the fifth set, it was about 60%. And he won a lot of 80% on his first serve. So it wasn't a huge problem there. But I do think that when that number did drop, which was in that third set, it went down to 50%, and he was only winning 44% of points in his first serve. So that's where, you do get a bit tight in those moments. It's such a huge match. It's so huge for him, given the fact that wasn't expecting to be here, I think was something that he also said. So I don't think you can do much more apart from just try and stay calm. He's a pretty level-headed man anyway.
I mean, I think Sinner has, he's never won a match that's gone beyond 3 hours, 50 minutes. He doesn't have a great 5-set record. I believe he would have won this, had it gone to 5 against anyone else. Carlos Alcaraz, like you said, God mode tonight. So I don't think he should be feeling like, oh, I can't get over the finish line any match that's like 4 hours or more. But at some point, he's going to want to kind of get that kind of bogey off his back almost. I mean, he obviously came back
that
against...
feeling, as well as that belief that he can do it. Until you've done it, you don't know that you can.
He's going to be motivated because I feel like Alcaraz is... he's building up this collection of pain points that he's delivering to Sinner. That US Open,
like he's throwing them at a dartboard or something.
Last year, the semi-final,
body blows.
He needs to think, how can he land his own, body blow? I mean, even at the Rome final, losing, a set 6-1 in front of your home fans is not a great, situation to be in either. So certainly I think that is going to fuel him. And I think that's what makes this rivalry so great, is that I think they're going to spur on each other. And I just hope that these moments don't negatively impact the loser like Jannik Sinner. I actually hope, and I think with Jannik Sinner, because Chris, you said he has such a positive approach to the court that I think it's going to spur him on.
So resilient in those big moments. I mean, we've looked at, irrespective of what you think about the nature of the ban that he served or that whole incident, he was able to play through that, win multiple slams, fully compartmentalize that. So I don't think that he will necessarily have that problem, but he did say that he might be kept up at night on thinking about this one. So maybe it's one night and then he'll move on. But I do think he needs
to have that Novak Djokovic mindset of, I thought about it and then I moved on.
I think we all need to do that.
Yeah. I think what we've seen with the big three is that they have these crushing defeats and they come back stronger, and they're able to then enjoy that victory over their, opposition. And it's all the more sweet for it. Yeah, and I think that that's what's going to happen with these two. I think Sinner will come back stronger. He'll win Roland Garros one day. He's too good a player not to. Do you think, like you said, the last 6 slams have been won by both of them? Are we entering yet another era of dominance where there's just no inroads?
It's already happened, hasn't
else?
it? You blink and it's passed over to the next generation.
Do you think, just on building on that, do you think they have monopolized, or there is now like this cartel between the two of them? 4 Grand Slam finals, or do you think someone has got the capabilities to break that? And if so, who do you think that might be?
You make it sound so ominous, Josh.
Yeah, sorry,
like
I did.
Cartel.
The cartel, the Sincaraz cartel.
It's not the deals they're doing; it's the tennis they're playing that's getting them the titles. No, I think it looks like they will be splitting the slams. I think there's always been moments when, for example, a player's had a breakthrough run, or a player hasn't been fit or hasn't been able to do quite as well. I mean, sorry, you continue. Sorry. But I would say, even despite like the fact he was in such great form, that quarterfinal loss to Medvedev at Wimbledon was quite significant. I think that's not necessarily showing that he had a huge amount of dominance on grass, for example. And I think there are Australian Open defeats for Alcaraz where he hasn't necessarily played his best tennis down under yet. So I think there are slams where someone else might break through, but I think it's going to be very tough to beat Jannik Sinner on a hard court, and I think it's going to be pretty hard to beat Carlos Alcaraz on clay or grass. So I think that's where the split might be.
I think for me, the only player that will, for the rest of the year at least, or going into next year, not for much longer, Djokovic.
Cam Norrie? No, not Cam Norrie.
Djokovic,
I think,
can
sorry.
Throw a spanner in the works, get another slam, get his 25. Other players, though, I'm not convinced. Sinner and Alcaraz, I think, are here
not
to stay.
Draper Kim at Wimbledon?
Well, you thought Draper was reaching the final here, Joel.
Yeah,
so
you did.
let's
Never
not
been past the
over
first
egg
round.
Yeah, I know.
Draper.
Kim, you're not the first person to mention that to me, but
You
yeah,
went bold.
I mean, Jannik Sinner's record at Wimbledon is not the greatest, and you can, I think, see why in terms of his game. You know, he's not as comfortable at the net, and I think that's obviously a very important part to have on grass. So it will be interesting to see if he's able to, you know, improve elements of his game. I will say that I still thought him at the net. He did show some fantastic touches at time. It's not like it's a real glaring weakness, but certainly I think there are maybe opportunities there for someone. I will still back myself. I'll still say like a Jack Draper, maybe to reach a Grand Slam final, but it to me feels like these two are going to be the dominant forces, and it's going to take heroic efforts from everyone else to kind of usurp them.
Yeah, the fans will have to work out what camp they want to be in because it's looking set to be a long-term rivalry.